Yeah, hi, Paul Sackis, Good News Planet. I'm speaking of Larry Namer. Hi, Larry. How are you?
Hi, everything's good, Paul. Thanks for having me come on.
Oh, Larry, you're a living legend in the communications world. Congratulations for great success. You're the CEO of Metan Global Entertainment Group. You helped start co-founded Entertainment Television. You have major projects in China, and you grew up here in the New York area. Give us a little bit of a background. I know you started in the early 70s, I guess, and what has kept you in the business, and what even put you in the business day one?
Sure. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I went to school in Brooklyn. I went to Lincoln High School, and followed by Brooklyn College. And when I graduated, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I ended up getting kind of a mindless job for the summer, thinking that it'll give me some time to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. So I took a job with a company called Sterling Manhattan Cable TV.
Right.
And I got a job as an assistant splicer in the sewers of New York, putting the cables together. Back in '71, and that was quite an experience. But I kind of just loved the business, or the possibilities of what was happening with this wire that was now letting you have more than just the three broadcast networks that were there, and just kind of grew up in the business and never left.
All righty. Well, it's a great industry, I believe, and there's many facets to it. I think they call it show business, and someone once said that it's the number one export out of America. I wonder why that is. Why do you think that is?
I think we've had a great history of creative programming, in everything, in television and film and live theater and stuff like that, and just the freedoms that creators have been afforded here, have let us do lots of stuff that needed to appeal to lots of people. There were no political directions to it. It was just mainly meant to entertain people for profit and stuff. And over the years we grew very, very good at it and spread it around the world.
How do you think, and you were sitting on a panel on Victor Harwood's Digital Hollywood this past week, and I think it was even a Wall Street panel talking about technology, new technology. How is this all affecting the new technology, affecting the old guard of communications? How do you see the business? We're here in 2016. How do you see it in the next 5-10 years? Where do you think?
Well, I think you continue to see this total movement towards, making everything available on demand. You can watch anything you want at any time, and on any device. It used to be that you watched sitcoms just on a fixed position television, and then now I can watch them on my iPad, I can watch them on my television, I can watch them on my cell phone. So that's that will just continue. Bandwidth gets cheaper and cheaper and bigger, and the ability to run incredibly high quality video over any device just increases, so it kind of becomes ubiquitous. I think there's been this great rush to do scripted television again, and it's been amazing. There's just so much good scripted TV on now. I think you'll see a little bit of shrinkage in that. I think somebody mentioned there's 500 scripted shows on television now. I don't think you could sustain that rate. It's actually just become more than I could watch. I mean, there's so many things that people are telling me to watch. I just don't have enough time in the day to watch all the good stuff. So I think that'll shrink down a little. But And then the other thing that's coming is, and it's an unknown. I don't think anybody's figured out the answer yet for what the programming needs to be, but the technology certainly is interesting. Is the virtual reality, where you could create entertainment experiences that the person actually can participate in and become immersed in
an interactive way, with the headset on, you feel is going to be a win?
Yeah, I think, well, clearly when you try it, it's a pretty amazing experience because of it really does it does trick your brain into thinking that you're in a place that you're not and experiencing something that you're physically not, but mentally are. I don't think anybody's quite cracked what how the content experience has to lay out. I mean, I've seen it in video game kind of things, and it's fascinating in video games. There's no question. For things like taking a real estate tour of a house, that you could put the headset on and actually walk through a house that's in another country and explore it is very, very interesting. I think entertainment experiences, I think some high value brands. I've seen people playing with VR with UFC, which I thought was fabulous. I mean, UFC has become huge, and here you get to actually participate as a UFC person and stuff like that. But I mean, it's not there yet, but you can see that it's coming.
It is very exciting. I'll agree with you. I in the last CES Consumer Electronics Show, where it was featured, one of the Samsung had a booth there, and they had a roller coaster, and then they had a dance floor. I don't, maybe I'm old school, Larry, but I had to hold on to the railing.
Yeah, no, and that's what's interesting about it is that you start off knowing that you're not on the roller coaster, but the experience actually fools your brain, and you do hold on to the railing. I mean, I had one where it was like on a mountain, and I knew I was on flat ground, and somebody said jump, and I was like thinking about, going, how do I jump? I'm going to go off the cliff, and I go, wait a second, I'm not on a cliff.
Well, it's a pretty wild thing. How about just talking about that experience and the gaming? Gaming has become such a major interactive business. What's your thinking on games in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, games are huge. I mean, if you look at some of the video games, they're unbelievably well made. And you look at the numbers of the revenue numbers that these things do. I mean, you get video games that actually bring in a lot more money than a theatrical film, and they're becoming incredibly sophisticated. I know people who write music for video games and things like that. And video games have become a global form of entertainment as well. So you have a game that's not just popular in the U.S. I mean, it can be popular in China or Brazil or whatever. And you create this shared experience where kids in one country are playing against kids in another country, and from a sociological point of view, I think it's fascinating.
What do you think of good news and that? We all watch the news, and a lot of people are beaten down and battered from what they watch. We get a story, one or two little chuckles here, a real, somebody walking somebody across the street, an older person, say, for example. Do you think that has a greater, even Ted Turner, I think, wanted to start his CNN off as a good news, but realized that wasn't going to work. What do you think about that?
I think I think it's, if you go back to the linear television world, I think the concept would have a hard time, having things that are regularly scheduled and stuff and getting people to tune into it. But on the on-demand, given that we now have internet television and we have mobile television, other ways of doing it, and people have become used to the fact that they don't have to consume media in half-hour, 1 hour chunks. They can consume it in 6-minute pieces on the internet, or even when you look at things like Vine, 6-second pieces and stuff. So I think there are times during the day where people just want to get away from what's going on and just want something cute and chuckly and stuff like that. So I think, given where technology has come, the viability of good news is certainly much greater than it would have been in a linear TV world.
Do you think that technology, and we're sort of banking on this, we have a big Peace Day and Peace Outreach and working with the schools and so on and so forth. So I keep saying that what's going to get everybody in the world on the same page at the same time is these cell phones. We can get a message maybe to, billions at the same time. You see that being used in that manner, like We Are the World kinds of projects worldwide, on everybody tuning into their cell phones, which most of the world has or is getting.
Yeah, well, I think, I wouldn't limit it to cell phones. I mean, you have cell phones now, and you have tablets and, laptops and all kinds of things. So, the answer to, can you get people to tune in to the same thing? And again, I go back to any device, anytime. Yeah, I mean, some people may want to consume it on a laptop. Some people may want to consume it on a cell phone and stuff. But it certainly does make it possible, that you can do those kind of things. And if you just look at some of the, what I consider more interesting things, there's a music website that does some amazing stuff. It's called Playing for Change. And what they do is they take popular songs, but then they have musicians from different countries collaborate on the song. And, it's kind of the same thing. So you kind of have this world creative force, coming together for, playing, doing music and stuff. And I think if you just extrapolate, you can do that with any kind of messaging or any kind of programming.
Mm-hmm. You've had such great success in this industry, 40 plus years. What would you say to young people about the business, or about being in business? You've done so many good things in the world of communications. What would you say to a young person? You're just getting out of college, and how would you give them some advice on how to move forward?
Well, I think, the first is, kind of dream big and then follow your dreams. I mean, there's not a lot that you can't do. And, just people, I think, just fall into sometimes a rut of thinking that there's a certain path that's the only path that they have to take. And I think in my case, if you look at it, when Alan Marufka and I, my partner, Alan was from New Jersey, I grew up in Brooklyn, and here we are out in California, and, we decided we wanted to start a TV network, like a real broadcast TV network that would, be on cable systems all around, not just the country, but the world. And when we went and talked to people, everybody just said, looked at us and said, hey, you can't do that. You're not Rupert Murdoch. I mean, you don't just wake up and start a TV network. And I guess we weren't smart enough to realize that they were probably right, and we just decided that we were going to go out and do it, and we did it. And if you look at now, it's 100 and some odd countries, and I think it's become a driving force of pop culture around the world. So I guess if you realize there's nothing real that holds you back, and you're tenacious, and you come up with good ideas, it's all possible. So.
And how about for those entrepreneurial people that are out there in the business world, and say at some point they question their decision, and maybe the business is not going as well as it can? Do you have any suggestion on how they should evaluate their next move?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I think a lot of people have the hardest time, is realizing that not every idea you have is going to be a good one. I mean, every one I've had that turned out well, I've had 3 that didn't turn out so well. But you got to really look at it objectively and be very honest with yourself and look at it and go, hey, it seemed like a good idea, but I was wrong. What's next? And just without rehashing it and spending a lot of time, is just move on.
That makes good sense. Well, another question, culturally. Now, I know you're in the Ukraine and you're taking shows, very, very major producer for programming in China. Why China? Why'd you go to China and make that a sort of a priority for your company?
Well, I had spent a bunch of time, while I was in Stillity, I did a bunch of programming in Russia, in Russian. And, I looked at China saying, well, here's an unbelievably fast-growing economy. There's a very nascent media and communications and entertainment industry there. The things that I do well certainly would work there, and the fuel for all entertainment projects at the end of the day comes down to brands and sponsorship. And I said, here you have an unbelievably large consumer market. You have new brands that are going in. Consumer habits have not been set yet. The brands will spend a lot of money trying to get you to use, the Gillette shaver versus the Schick shaver, and plus there was no technology. There's no legacy stuff there in technology. It wasn't like you had to use a certain kind of phone system and stuff. Everything was brand new. So for me, who really loves this multi-platform thing, telling stories across cell phones, internet, mobile, just all kinds of things, it just became the logical place to go and play.
Mm-hmm. I know when I think I mentioned before we started recording this, and our audience knows that early on in the 80s, I met some people who had famous Jeff Barry, I think also he went to there's either Erasmus or Lincoln. I wrote a lot of songs, and then another gentleman, Dr. Don Oldfield, they had come back from China to bring in rock and roll music into China. And we were, and my job was to help them find sponsors. And headquarters is Hong Kong for most of China as business opportunities. The problem they realized was to get sponsors that the distribution was so early on, you couldn't, when the Nike sneaker was being made there, but it wasn't being sold there. So Nike wouldn't take an ad out on the Chinese or American radio in China. So don't you have to deal with some of those cultural kind of changes in the process of
that stuff has changed dramatically. The acceptance of Western goods into the market is clearly happened. There's really no products that want to get into China that can't get into China. I mean, just about everybody is there. Every major brand marketer is there. China has become, it's not the number one, the number two market for consuming luxury goods. I mean, if you look at, somebody told me this crazy number, there are now more Chanel stores in Beijing than there are in all of the United States. It's the biggest market for Kentucky Fried Chicken now. There are more Kentucky Fried Chickens in China than there are in the U.S. And,
wow.
When you were back there in the 80s, that was not the case. So now that, there are every brand. We did a big web series for Bacardi. We've done web series for Fiat and Chrysler and, just you name the brand, and, they're there and we've been working with them.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I think there's more people speak English in China than speak English in America.
That is true. I've heard there are 400 million people who speak some level of English in China.
How about China, just because that is a big part of our business, China coming here to America, and they're looking at, our movie theaters, at the film companies, TV, so on and so forth. Where's your thinking?
Yeah, it's funny because it's getting so much attention, and people kind of are looking at this that it's a new phenomenon. But in the entertainment business, particularly the film business, the entry of foreign money is been historical. I mean, you had a time where the Japanese came in and bought Sony, and then you had a lot of Arab money, and then you had a lot of Russian money, and now you have a lot of Chinese money. It's a very sexy business. It's a very profitable business if you're good at it. So now we're finding Chinese coming in and fueling the engine, so to speak. And a Chinese company bought AMC theaters, and they're looking at. I've heard Chinese are looking at buying Dick Clark and stuff like that. But it seems to come in waves. I don't think it's anything new. And again, I'm kind of, I guess, like you in some ways, in that I really do believe in this one world thing, and I think what made America great is the mixture of cultures, and I think what's going to really help the world is when we really begin to understand that essentially we're all the same.
I love that, Larry. You're speaking what I think is the bottom line, and proven even medically. We all have the same DNA.
I mean, one of the reasons, I guess, for my success in other countries, and like I've had, hit, number one TV show in Russia in Russian, and I don't speak it. I've had, popular shows. I still have popular shows in China. I've even written I have a sitcom that was on in China, 70 episodes of a sitcom, and people said it's impossible. You can't. You can't have, you can't come from America and go to China and write comedy in a language that you don't speak, for a culture you didn't grow up in and stuff. And, I wrote this comedy, and we've done 70 episodes. It's played on national TV, with a potential audience of 1.1 billion people. And 2 years ago, it was nominated as in the best comedy category at the Asia TV Awards, which are held in Singapore every year. And it was the only sitcom from China that was nominated. And I said, think about the irony of this, that the funniest TV show in China is written by a New York Jew. So the world is changing. There's no question. I think if you pay attention and you begin to realize that you don't really have to focus on the differences between people, but think of, accept the changes in people's culture. Not everybody has to be the same, but it doesn't make it good or bad.
I love it. In Yiddish, we'll call you a mensch. Let me ask you two last questions. I thank you for all this time and all this wisdom for the industry and for life in general, and moving ourselves into better places and handling the difficult moments. I ask people two questions. What is good news for you in any aspect of your life? What would be good news?
Good news for me is people helping people, people overcoming obstacles. I think the world really now, we've had so much bad stuff. I think if you just look at the way reality TV has been evolving over the last, year or two, where instead of voting your friend off the island and being mean, you have things like American Ninja Warrior, where it's really about reaching within yourself and being the best you could be. I think, people are now looking for, they want to be a citizen, a better citizen of the planet and stuff like that. So, I think the time has come.
All righty. It leads into my second question. We've been involved with the International Day of Peace for many years, which is on September 21st. We do events in Times Square, Central Park, and then we partnered with UNESCO and the New York City Department of Education. We're hopefully building this out worldwide to do Peace Day programs under their banner of the New York City schools, which is called, since you've gone to them, Respect for All. They have a whole initiative. They go into schools and they talk about concerns, cyberbullying and discrimination, so on and so forth. So we're building this out. So I asked thousands of people, what does peace mean to them? So to be the last question, and Larry, what does peace mean to you?
Well, I think it's when we realize that, we don't have to be here, killing ourselves and and whatever. And again, it's really celebrating our differences and realizing that it's these very things that have made us this unique species and managed to accomplish so many things in the world. And the fighting and the wars and stuff have really done nothing positive. And it's when we've decided to, for America, where we've taken in scientists from Germany or Russia and stuff. That's where we really prosper, is when we come up with this multicultural approach to solving the problems of the world. It's not all one way. It's a mixture of ways.
Beautiful. Larry, thank you so much for sharing good news with us. Look forward to meeting you and sitting down and continuing our discussion. Thank you so much,
right.
Larry Namer.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.